Hey, somebody needs to wake up. You have? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to The Professional Noticer. Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, thank you for making me a part of your week. My purpose here today and with every show we do is to play the part of a best friend or a coach. I want to help you live the life of your wildest dreams by giving you access to the greatest mentors the world has to offer today. This week, the Professional Noticer is sponsored by Books for Veterans. The Veterans Administration in Washington, D.C. has asked for Andy Andrews books. I'm personally donating as many as I can, but to reach our goal, which is 10,000, I need your help. What we're able to do to make that easier for you is for every $12 donation you make, a hardback book will be sent to the Veterans Administration for veterans, their families, and for employees of the VA. That $12 will cover the cost of the book, the shipping and handling, or you can purchase one of these awesome Books for Veterans t-shirts, and your purchase will include a book sent in your name. So whether you can make this a personal gift or a corporate donation, just go to andyandrews.com/veterans. This can be added to a website purchase, done as an individual entry, or in conjunction with a Books for Veterans t-shirt. And thank you very much for your support. Observations and answers, that's what we do here on The Professional Noticer. And as you know, we love it when somebody comes to the table with both. And that's what we have here today. We have a very unusual guest that came to me in an unusual way. This is a lady who has put her life into something that I think we'll all agree is worthwhile. But it was her uncle, who is a friend of mine, who connected us. And he said, hey, you know, she might be good on the podcast. And I'm like, when I looked at the stuff, I was like, oh my gosh, we got to have her on the podcast. She is the executive director, the founder of Wheelchairs for Warriors. And they provide custom wheelchairs to injured veterans and first responders that are engineered to each recipient's individual needs and capabilities. And so please welcome Crystal Laramore. Hey, Crystal, how are you?
I'm wonderful. This is just such an honor. As I was telling you before, my Uncle Bill and Aunt Cheryl love you, love all of your books. I think they've read everything, maybe more than once. And, you know, I don't think that you can be really close to Uncle Bill and Aunt Cheryl without them sharing things that are near and dear to their hearts. And your books have been shared with me and with a lot of people.
Well, this is why you and I are talking, because they have shared something near and dear to their hearts, you and Wheelchairs for Warriors, with me. And so I love your Uncle Bill. I call him Colonel Bill. And for those who may not know, he has so far refused to come on The Professional Noticer. And I mean, if anybody qualifies, he qualifies, right? I mean, he was the director of operations for Cheyenne Mountain during 9/11. And so his stories are hair-raising. And I'm just like trying to nudge him into the studio.
I know. You should. It's like, you know, I want to hear some of the stories too. I accidentally hear stories about his service from people. I'm like, well, I didn't know that.
I know. It's
really
pretty amazing.
Stuff. You got to just be sitting around the table and eating some elk and breaking some bread, and then you'll get some little nuggets, and we'll just have to set up a secret camera somewhere with a recording device. Well, we'll figure out a way.
I guess. I was out in the field with him. We were on our Vortex binoculars, and we're scanning the horizon for elk and antelope. And he starts telling me this story about that day, about 9/11 and what went on. And I said, man, you've got to tell that story on The Professional Noticer. And he looked at me and said, not a chance. Oh, golly. So you were in the military too, Crystal, right?
No, I wasn't brave enough. I was supposed to go into the Navy. That was the family plan. And I really didn't know. Uncle Bill is really my first introduction into the military when he was young and stealthy and handsome, and he would show up in his uniform. I mean, it's just, and all the photos and everything. It was really my first memory of the military was my Uncle Bill in uniform. And my father was 101st Airborne. He was a medic. He was a Screaming Eagle. But I didn't, of course, know my father at that time, right? And he didn't really talk much about his military service. It was really Uncle Bill who gave me my first impressions of the military. And so my father and I had a long talk when I was 19 and didn't know what I wanted to do and was in a junior college. And he says, why don't you join the Navy? You can travel the world. You can do this. You can do that. And some things sounded amazing. And I was really excited about it. I took some tests. I had a plan. I was going to go to college. I was going to go to officer candidate school. And as time went by, I thought, I don't think me and the military get along very well. I don't think we have the same personality.
Yeah,
And
I can sense that just right now, that you probably don't have the same personality.
I didn't think
They would not have appreciated your sense of spunk and humor. I'm thinking, but you ended up serving the country. You worked for the Department of State in Baghdad,
I did.
and you were the liaison for the ambassador to Iraq.
That's right. Yep.
Well, so
John
how did that come about? How did that come about?
No, I had really, 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 really one big regret in life. And it's that I did not follow in my uncle and my father's footsteps. And I did not follow. I'm a daughter of the American Revolution. So we've been fighting battles since the beginning, right? A Laramore has been in every battle and every conflict. And I really did have that regret that I didn't serve. I didn't have really necessarily the regret I didn't join the Navy, but that I didn't serve. And I don't know how you discern between the two, but in my mind, I did. And the opportunity came up to go to work for KBR in Iraq. And I was like, I used to be in oil and gas. And so
What is KBR? What is KBR?
Oh, Kellogg, Brown and Root.
Okay.
Kinfolk, buddies, and relatives. That's who gets a job. And so one of my buddies said, hey, we're looking for some people in Baghdad to work at the president of Iraq's villa and some other things. And I was like, I'm not going to a war zone to work for KBR. That's not happening. And pretty soon, one offer went to another offer, and it said, look, we'll give you a State Department. We'll put you with the State Department. We really need to fill this duty. It's to, work at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad and be the boss, basically the head person there, the point of contact. And I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll think about it. And then one thing led to another, and I ended up with a Kevlar vest, a helmet in the desert, wondering, what have I done? Oh no, Uncle Bill was right. I have no business in a war zone.
And so how did that connect you to being the liaison for the ambassador?
So when I showed up in Baghdad, my father always
and the ambassador was John Negroponte, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
My father always said that I possess a lot of my Uncle Bill's skills, and good or bad, I possess a lot of my Uncle Bill's skills. So I got there and they didn't really know what I was supposed to be doing, but they plopped me into the U.S. Embassy. I was waiting on someone from the State Department to come have me sign a contract, I thought. I didn't really know what was going on, but somebody from KBR just dropped me off at the U.S. Embassy. And I was there with, steel-toed boots, jeans, a t-shirt, hair probably in a ponytail because it was hot, and didn't have any clue what I was supposed to be doing. So I just started doing things. And then people would walk up to me and go, who are you? And I'd go, I'm in charge. I'm your boss. Well, no, I had no idea. And so this redheaded guy from DC comes popping in. His name was Bob. And he goes, hey, I hear you're in charge. And he was in charge. I think so. I don't know. And he says, well, I like your spunk. And he goes, here, have a car, have a cell phone, have a thing, and be in charge. I've got other things to do. And off he went. And so I was kind of in charge.
Wow.
It was just crazy stuff. And it was like, you're in a war zone. It's like, dig in, do what needs to be done. Somebody needed food. The military needed support. The State Department needed support. The president from Iraq needed something. They needed a meeting done. I was the only contractor in the history to ever get a .gov email address. Like, it had to go up the channels for me to even get, the .gov email so that the ambassador could actually correspond with me. And then the chief of protocol told Washington, I don't really think I'm needed here. She's got it all under control. And so then he left. He was there for a couple of months and he left. And then I really was in charge.
Wow.
So funny.
Good grief. Now I look at your life and what I've heard from your Uncle Bill and your Aunt Cheryl, and I'm kind of confused because you own a big PR firm.
I did.
You did?
I did.
Okay, so just got tired of that?
I did. Our
Okay.
our number one revenue stream was me being a political consultant.
Oh, I would get tired of that.
And I did it for a really long time, and it was a soul-sucking adventure. And it was, I made a lot of money. But, the politicians are raising money to spend money because that's how they get elected, right?
Sure.
And our PR firm did everything from A to Z. We weren't the campaign manager, so we did everything except go put out the campaign signs. But we did everything for the what were they called? What's the nice word? Many blood-sucking creatures. No.
Yeah, politics. Politics.
Yeah. So anyways.
But now you own newspapers?
No, I sold the news. So the newspaper was part of the PR firm. And when I got a congressman elected to office out of 12 people running for a vacant seat, I got a congressman, I won't say his name on your podcast. I got a congressman elected to office. And his promise was that he was going to stop Obamacare. That was his promise to me. It was one of the reasons that I accepted him as a client. It was his promise to everybody that he spoke to along the way. It was at everything that I brought him into to raise money, at every single fundraiser. I'm stopping Obamacare. He had one job. It was to stop Obamacare. All he had to do was give a no vote, and he gave a present vote, and it carried Obamacare.
Well,
that's how we got Obamacare, by somebody I put into office. I felt responsible for that, and I can barely even look at the guy when I see him in public. I can barely, and he'll just reach out for me every time. I'm like, nope, I can't. I told you, if you lied to me, I would work as hard against you as I worked for you. So on the heels of that, I had a mentoring session with my life mentor and business coach. And he wanted to know what part of my business I really wanted to focus on. And I just looked at him. I said, really, kind of none of it. It all involves politicians. I'm over it. I'm tired of it. I think I've hit burnout. And he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I think I just want to shift my fundraising skills from raising money for politicians to raising money for veterans. And he said, okay, well, go do it. Let me know when you've got it figured out.
Wow. So what was your first big move? What? I mean, there's many veterans organizations, but what made you decide on the wheelchairs and this special kind of wheelchairs? It's not just wheelchairs; these are multifunctional vehicles, and so what made you move in that direction?
Well, I am going to say that I owe this whole process to God. I owe every blessing, everything to God. Once I listened to God. So while I was not listening to God and I was doing things on my own, I had no idea what I wanted to do. Did I want to work for this nonprofit? Did I want to work for this nonprofit? What did I want to do? So I went to work for that nonprofit, and I went to work for this nonprofit, and I didn't like, the direction that their moral compass was headed, and I didn't like their values, and I didn't like the way they handled business, and I didn't like this, and I didn't like, and I had all kinds of complaints. And I had heard somebody say one time, well, if you don't like the way they're doing it, then do it yourself. And so that little voice was kind of rumbling around in my head. And I was having dinner with one of my best friends, Heidi Hansing, a former captain in the Army. Her son went to West Point. They have many of their family who have served in in every conflict as well. I don't know if she's a daughter of the American Revolution, but very close. And we were just commiserating about, we were finding ourselves in the same kind of situation. And I said, well, let's just start our own nonprofit. And she said, how? And I said, well, I don't know, but I've done other things and I bet I can do this too.
I bet I can figure this out too.
I can figure this out too. And I mean, if a bunch of Army guys can start a nonprofit, if a bunch of Marines can start a nonprofit, I mean, surely we could start, a couple of smart women can start a nonprofit. And we didn't really know. I mean, we didn't know what it was going to look like. Were we going to call it Green Zone Warriors? Or were we going to raise money for it? We just couldn't figure it out. Meanwhile, a really dear friend of ours is Paul Morgan, and he is an engineer, and he's a complex rehab seating specialist for workman's comp situations. And he works in the workman's comp arena only if you're injured at work, right? So his father was an Army veteran in a wheelchair. It's very near and dear to his heart to take care of these people in these wheelchairs, but not anything to do with veterans, right? But we were dragging him along to this event and this military function and that military function because we were trying to meet people. We were trying to see what the need was. What do you need from us? What could we do? What gap could we fill? And for over a year, Paul would be like this, Crystal, that is a Medal of Honor recipient, and he is in a horrible wheelchair. That wheelchair is terrible. And I would go, okay, what am I going to do about it? Well, I appreciate the fact that you were concerned about a wheelchair, but I don't. And then Crystal, that man had his legs blown off in Iraq, and they have given him a wheelchair that doesn't even fit him. Did you see the seat on that? Doesn't even. And I'm like, so did not notice the seat on that wheelchair. Did not even think about it. And Crystal. And it was just like this gnat kept flying around me. And then one day I sent him a picture of a veteran who had jumped out of an airplane, and he's in a wheelchair and he's got his dog with him, and he just jumped out of an airplane. I said, look at this. This guy just jumped out of an airplane. I'm scared of jumping out of an airplane. He's a paralyzed veteran, jumped out of an airplane. Paul said, his wheelchair is horrible. Did you see that seat? That's an institutional wheelchair. And I went, and then I said, aha, here I have been for 30 years coming up with names for businesses, ideas for businesses, slogans for businesses. And Wheelchairs for Warriors just zoomed into my brain. And I went, oh, I can do something about it. Oh, okay. And there you have it. Every door open, every person that we need comes into our life. When we need it, it comes. We've served over 100 veterans and first responders. We've never had to turn anybody down. We have hardly any money, but we always have enough.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
They're specialized because Paul knows how to do the basketball wheelchair, the track wheelchair. He knows how to do all the adaptive sports wheelchairs, the daily living wheelchair, the outdoor, you want to go elk hunting wheelchair. He can design them all. And so we fly him out to wherever the veteran or first responder lives. And he does a 2-3 hour seating clinic with them. He measures them from head to toe. Now we have 2 more seating clinics. 2 more ATPs is what they're called, who work under Paul. And gotcha. We fly them out to wherever they need to go. We don't make the warrior come to us. We go to them. And then we find out what it is they want, and what they think they want when we show up might be different than what they want when we leave. Because Paul says, well, you got 30 acres of land. Are you sure this is the wheelchair you want? Don't you want to get out on your land? Don't you want to go elk hunting? And then so they may want a daily living wheelchair and end up saying, oh, no, I'll take that all-terrain chair. Or sometimes we give them both, because why not? They wrote a blank check for us.
Say that again.
They wrote a blank check for us. And
so if they want 2 wheelchairs, why not?
Why not? Andy, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you have more than one pair of shoes?
Yes.
there you have it. I just had an epiphany one day and I was like, oh, well, that wheelchair won't get him outside, and the outside wheelchair won't help inside, and this wheelchair won't get him to playing basketball. Let's get him outside. I have more than one pair of shoes. I have more than one pair of boots. I've got a couple of pair of cowboy boots. And, so we've served several veterans and first responders more than one time.
That is so awesome.
Yeah. It's just, look, freedom isn't free. And when you sign your name on the dotted line, you belong to the government, and whatever they want to do with you, and Uncle Bill and Aunt Cheryl can attest to that. And so can Paul Phillips, one of your prior guests. I love Paul Phillips.
Yeah.
That, you have to do what they tell you to do. And if they decide to put you in harm's way, you will go. And when, everyone in the military, soldiers, Marines, everybody, they have a mantra, and it is no man left behind. And one of the things that I always say in my speeches is, okay, so no man left behind on the battlefield. We're going to drag them off the battlefield, broken, tattered, bleeding, missing limbs. We're going to drag them off the battlefield, and we're going to drag them home. We're going to do what with them? Leave them in a crappy wheelchair? No. So no man left behind on the home field is our mantra.
I have great faith in our audience, and and I really am excited about being able to put this story in our podcast lineup, and so just to give us kind of an idea, how much does, and I know they vary according to what he's building, but how much does the average wheelchair cost?
$12,000.
Okay.
So we have them ranging from $3,500 to $65,000. I just did an outdoor wheelchair for Colonel Gadsden in the Virginia area, and his wheelchair was, upwards to $30,000. Because we give them the brochure, and they're mostly men, and they go, oh, can get a shotgun rack. There's a fishing rod holder. Are you kidding me? Zero turn? Who said what? I mean, so it's like I can have it. I can have it powder coated, blue, camo, red, orange, purple. Like, they start seeing some of the options, and it's like check, 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 check.
And again, I got two pairs of shoes. Most of us have two cars. Most families have two cars.
Right.
And most of us, when we get a car, we get the color we want. And if we have a truck, we put a gun rack on it. And if we get a Polaris, we've got rod racks and gun racks on them, and cup holders. And so, good, man, I'm so excited to hear about this.
And LED lighting. Oh, yeah. It's amazing the things that I've learned that you can do with a wheelchair. And some of the wheelchairs that we design can stand if their body can take it, because we build them based on their ability and their disability, right? So if their body can take it, it can stand them up, and they can scoot around the house and give their caregiver a little bit of relief. Instead of, honey, can you get me? Now they can go get themselves and look their peers eye to eye. I mean, it's pretty freeing.
That is so awesome.
And when you're talking about also these heavy duty institutional wheelchairs that weigh upwards of 50 pounds, and you have a caregiver, I'm 5'1", I weigh 100 pounds. And when you're talking about somebody like me picking up a 52-pound wheelchair, I mean, let's talk about the last time I pumped iron. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so 12 to 14-pound wheelchair, I can manage. And you get when we deliver these wheelchairs, the caregivers will break down and cry. One of our recipients just passed away. His name is Lee Talavera. He passed away May 29th. And his wife is really small, and she just had the hardest time taking care of him. And she did it every single day. And his wheelchair was extremely heavy, and she would have to take his wheelchair and drag it into the back of their car. And the back of her car was dinged and dented and scratched because it was just so heavy. And when we walked into Lee's house, he was sitting in one of those really crappy wheelchairs that Paul would always talk about. It was institutional, it was heavy, and it had a very slack, thin seat. And Lee had a spinal cord injury, and he was an Army veteran, and he was sitting on the frame. That's how bad his wheelchair was, and the VA wouldn't come to help him. And his wife had put bath towels on the seat to, help. So we built Lee one of those lightweight titanium wheelchairs, and Paul put this really cool cushion in his chair that was like an air number mattress that had just air fingers in it. And when Lee sat on the pressure mapping thing, it told him where he was leaning. And so the seat adjusted so that when Lee sat on that seat, that not only was it comfortable, but that it straightened him up. He had a spinal cord injury. And that's the part where I talk about no man left behind. And I tell his story often. And he was a hero, and he did not die a hero's death. He had been abandoned. And it's a tragedy. And we're better than this. America is better than this. Ooh, Andy, I'm sorry.
No.
I just talked to his wife this morning, and it's all just kind of a little bit raw.
Crystal, we appreciate you. I really, I'm sitting here as we're talking, and I'm thinking of people that I want to introduce to you. One of them is Louise Thaxton in Louisiana. You need to get to know Louise. She's the CEO of American Warrior Initiative, and they do service dogs. And they just gave away their 365th service dog the other day. But you and Louise are two peas in a pod on either end of the pea pod. And I just think you probably need to know each other.
Yeah. So, service dogs are such a huge, important part of a warrior's life, especially if they have PTS. But even if they don't, even if they, they drop something, dogs can reach down and pick it up and hand it to them. And they're just, I love people who are in the service dog lane.
I got to tell you, you have opened my eyes today about wheelchairs. I'm probably no different from 99% of us. We think of a wheelchair, we think of kind of what we see in an airport.
Mm-hmm.
And,
right.
And
that's right.
And so, but these are life-giving, it's just like, this has got to be the difference in a deep depression and a sense of hope.
Well, if you keep up, or or you hear, the old number for veteran suicides per day used to be 22. They did another study that came out with probably closer to 44 veterans a day commit suicide. I just read a study the other day that said 33.9%. Whatever, 2, 1, doesn't matter. The number's too big. It needs to stop. And isolation leads to depression, and depression leads to suicide. And those are the cold, hard facts. And it doesn't take a genius to string all that together. And if we know as a society, especially since COVID, that sunshine and getting outside and being with friends and family, if we understand that that's healthy now more than ever before, we're just going to leave them in their house with a crappy wheelchair. And pretty soon their wife is going to, pretty soon they're just going to say to their wife, "It's okay, honey. You just go without me. I know that I'm too much of a burden." And then they don't get to see their kids play they don't get to see their kids play baseball. They don't get to see their kids play soccer. Then what does that do to the kids? Dad can't come watch me play soccer. I'm doing soccer because my dad played soccer or whatever it is, right? And then all of a sudden, dad is just plucked out from society and from his family and from everyday living. And again, we're better than that.
Okay, so what can we do to help? Tell me. We are gonna put every contact you allow us to put on these show notes. But
Okay.
tell us what can we do to help?
You can, of course, share our mission with whoever that you know that would like to support us financially. You can follow us on Zoom. You can follow. I'm looking at. See, Zoom. Don't follow us on Zoom. We're not. You're not going to find it.
Not going to
I
find us
meant
on
to say
Zoom.
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I'm pretty sure we're not on Snapchat. That might be the only platform we're not on. I just refuse. I don't think we're on TikTok either. I think I refuse TikTok and Snapchat. But Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. We have videos. You can share our mission. There's so many ways that you can support us, and lots of companies have golf tournaments every year. Lots of companies have events, lots of, all sorts of things that you do that you can turn it into a charitable event and have us as your beneficiary. You can, remember us in your will. Just do that.
This is one thing I just want to make sure that I don't want to leave this unsaid. For our audience, take this episode. You know somebody who needs to hear it. You know somebody who can afford to help in a big way. You know some people who look for charitable organizations. Take this episode and make them watch it. Make them watch it. So, and then cut out this part where I said make them watch it. But we need awareness because you can't have people helping if they're not aware, or if they're thinking like I was thinking of wheelchairs, like what you see in an airport. But this is different. You have changed my thought process today, and I appreciate you being with us. And I got to thank Colonel Bill and Cheryl for introducing us. This is really life-changing for me, and to give the opportunity to help with something that's life-changing for other people. Thank you, Crystal.
Well, Uncle Bill is one of my heroes, and I am extremely proud of his service to our country and of him just as a human, as a husband, as a father, as an uncle. I mean, he's just always been a big part of my life, and he's a fantastic human. And when he sent me an email saying, Andy Andrews is going to ask you to be on his podcast, I was like, who, what, wait, what? What's going on here? Okay.
Well, I really appreciate you being with us today. This is awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And let's keep in touch, okay?
Yes. When are you going back to Colorado?
Probably September or October.
Okay. Well, I'll be there at the end of July.
Okay. Well, we'll just miss each other.
I'm escaping the
heat and the rain. All your Texas weather.
It's about to get really humid around here. It's about to get real.
Yeah, it is. It is. Thank you, Crystal. We'll see you soon.
So much. Okay. Bye, Andy. Thank you.
I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. And I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing what tiny bit of mental energy I have for you, seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Limper. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. A bluegill supper for the cast and crew provided by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional financial consideration provided by Big Ed's Raw Oyster Warehouse. Are you visiting the Gulf Coast? Do you long for the ultimate in seafood? Stop and shop Bayou La Battery, a little fishing town just west of Mobile. Bayou La Battery is the longtime home of Big Ed's Raw Oyster Warehouse, a multi-generational family business for more than 100 years. Opening its doors in 1908, Big Ed Tyler and his beautiful bride, Big Maud, were entrepreneurs of the first order and have since been followed by 6 generations of Tylers: Big Clyde, Big Frank, Big Mac, Big Earl, and Big Leonard. Currently owned and operated by the youngest in the long line of Tylers, Little Willie, Big Ed's Raw Oyster Warehouse offers shucked oysters by the pint, quart, or gallon. Unshucked oysters are sold by the bushel. That's Big Ed's Raw Oyster Warehouse, providing the world's only seafood you can tie a string around and make a meal out of one.